Hello, everyone. This is our guest for today, David Nicholson. And before we start the interview questions, he's going to do a few tunes on his violin for us.
I'm just going to play a few tunes, some of my favourite pieces that I like to play. First one that I'm going to play is an old slow piece that I learned when I was very young. And it's called Neil Gow's Lament for the Death of His Second Wife. So I hope you enjoy that. And then I'm going to follow that up by a little Kate Brighton tune that I learned a few years ago. So hope you enjoy it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spectrum Sessions, the podcast where we platform unfiltered autistic voices and celebrate our differences. I'm Heather from the National Autistic Society Scotland, and today we're here with David Nicholson. Would you mind introducing yourself to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
Yep, I'm David Nicholson. I come from Fife. I'm the General Administrator for the National Autistic Society in Scotland. I'm a smallholder, musician, autism campaigner, and political activist.
I like to start things off by talking about special interests and fixations, just because,
Mhm.
like, generally autistic people love talking about that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So, would you mind telling us about one of your interests? It could be past or it could be something you're interested in at the
I
moment.
mean, yep, two of the most important interests for me are around music and the countryside. They've been part of my life for a very long, long time. Both of these have helped me to get through some challenging times, and they've also been witness to some of the happiest times that I've had in my life. Spending time at the small holding or playing with fiddle just brings me utter joy, and they help to keep me grounded. And I've good ways of taking my mind off the world and what's going on around about it.
That's great. Thank you. So, you were late diagnosed like myself. You were diagnosed at the age of 19. Would you mind telling us a bit about your diagnosis journey and how it felt to finally get that diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, oh, I was diagnosed. I was first identified as being autistic in the second year of high school, and then I was formally diagnosed as being autistic when I was up in Plockton attending the National Centre of Excellence in Traditional Music. So I got my diagnosis in May 2008, and to get that kind of formal, get that diagnosis was quite emotional, but also a relief in a lot of ways because it gave me a real reason as to why I had struggled socially, particularly over the time that I was in school.
Yeah, I had a similar sort of story with it being a relief. I think that's a common thing for a lot of late diagnosed autistic people.
It is because, as I say, it just gives you a reason as to why you find it difficult to make friends and socialise.
Mhm.
So it was, for me, it was like, oh, this is a reason. There's a reason behind I was finding it difficult. So yeah, as you say, a real
Mhm.
relief.
Yeah. With you being late diagnosed, did you find that throughout your childhood you would sort of mask and try and fit in with other young people your age?
Um, I mean, that's a bit of a taste of my memory. But looking back, funnily enough, looking back, I think I was more myself when I was younger, particularly at primary school.
Mhm.
Um, but once I found out I was autistic at high school, I think I did start to mask more and to try and fit in and make friends because I knew that I was different. So to compensate for that, I wanted to hide it and
Mhm.
try and just be like everybody else.
Yeah, that's another common sort of thing for autistic people throughout school. It's really hard to unmask as well. It's a difficult thing to do. You need to be quite confident in yourself, don't you?
I think you do, because as you say, once you put that mask on, it can be very difficult to take it off.
Mhm.
And I think you're quite right. It takes a huge degree of confidence to be able to take it off and be your true self.
Mhm. Do you still mask now, even after embracing your artistic identity?
This was a good question.
Mhm.
Certainly, I still mask, even after getting diagnosed, I still mask, and I think that's particularly true on social media.
Yeah.
I think on social media, it's very easy to adapt or put on a different personality.
Mhm.
Um, so I think certainly when it comes to social media, I kind of know that I do mask in order to fit in and be like everybody else. So yeah, certainly. Um, I try not to do it, but yeah, I still do it from time to time.
Yeah. It can be really difficult to sort of just unmask all the time, can't it? It's not an easy thing, but it's good that you're sort of taking steps towards that.
Absolutely. And as I say, I think the problem with social media is that you're seeing what people are getting up to and you feel like you're missing out. So sometimes that adds to the pressure that you've got to try and be like everybody else.
Mhm.
But as you were saying, I'm taking steps now to unmask, and
Yeah.
it's a process. But I'm beginning to feel a lot more confident and positive. So yeah.
If you could go back in time and give yourself some advice, what would it be?
I think it would be to tell myself to be less anxious
Yeah.
and to have the confidence to be myself, regardless um, of what anybody else really thought.
Mhm. That's a good that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, that'd be similar to what I would tell myself as well, although it'd
Mm,
be hard to put into practice, I imagine,
it would
at
be.
that age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us about some of the main challenges you experience in your day-to-day life due to being autistic?
I think this was a very good question. I mean, I could go on and on and on about some of the
It's fine, we have
challenges.
an hour, so
Well, yeah. To keep it brief,
Mhm,
in the sense that I think I tend to find a lot of confidence and self belief at times, and that can be hugely challenging.
mhm,
Um, Equally, I can get very anxious, particularly if public transport is delayed or not running on time. I find myself getting agitated and I can get quite nervous.
mhm.
Um, and whilst it's getting easier than what it was, I still find going to big social events um, quite challenging, particularly if I don't know anybody at the event. That can make me very nervous. So that's just some of the challenges that I face still to this day.
Yeah, transport's a big one for me as well. Um, Trains are just like, when there's delays or if there's like, sometimes I just get really confused as well with train
Um,
stations and figuring out what platform to get on.
Particularly if they change the platform at the last minute. I mean, there's
Mhm.
been times when I use the trains quite a bit, and they'll say it's going to be on platform 14, and then it gets moved to platform 20. Um, that can create, when they do things like that, that creates a bit of anxiety as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're a very talented musician.
Mhm.
Um, at what age did you start playing music, and why did you stick to it for so long?
Um, ooh, I started playing fiddle when I was 11, so that was back, 11, that was back in 2000, 2001, which is a long time, that's about 24 years that I've been playing.
Wow.
So it's been a long time, and music forms a core part of my identity, and I think that's why I've kept going with it. If I gave it up, then I think a big part of who I am and my identity would be lost, and I would not be the same individual.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
So because we've had chats about it previously, I play accordion and guitar and a few other instruments. And I find that whenever I play music, it really helps to just calm me down. It helps me to feel less overwhelmed. Just takes me out of my thoughts. I was wondering if you get the same sort of feeling when you play your violin.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Playing the fiddle definitely helps me to calm down.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling anxious or upset, just playing a few tunes on my instrument helps to calm me right down. And I suppose that's the power of music
Mhm.
in a sense. Um, it just really just helps to just keep me grounded or bring me back to the ground if I'm having a bad day. So without a doubt, yeah,
And you've achieved a lot over the years due to your talent in music. Even this year, you've been away abroad, haven't you?
yeah.
Doing some amazing things. So I was hoping you would let listeners know a bit about your successes and what ones have been most meaningful to you?
I mean, this was. I really had to have a think about this question because it was quite a big one.
Mhm.
I mean, talking about some of my meaningful successes that I've had in my musical life to date, one of them has got to be about getting into the National Centre of Excellence in Traditional Music in Plockton. That was back in 2007. And then successfully auditioning to become a member of the Scottish Fiddle Orchestra in 2017, which was probably up there with one of my most proudest achievements. And then getting a place on on the Live Music Now Scotland scheme in 2024, which was absolutely incredible. And on top of all that, as you were saying, I went abroad this year. I was over in Bulgaria and Sofia in June to attend and to speak at a conference. It was the European Music Forum in Sofia, and that really was, again, a real highlight for me to network, to get to meet other musicians, and yeah, I mean that has to be up there as well as a really good life-changing experience.
Yeah, it's amazing, very impressive. Did you ever feel that being autistic was going to hold you back from achieving those successes? Because, a lot of people can feel like they're never going to be able to achieve that sort of thing, especially if they're struggling socially or feeling like they're not able to sort of attend interviews or push themselves to achieve their goals. So, did you feel like it was going to hold you back? And if so, how did you overcome those doubts?
Oh, I think there's been many times in my life when I felt that being autistic was going to kind of hold me back. Been loads of times. Particularly when I suffer from a lot of anxiety, self-doubt, a lot of confidence. I mean, these can be real barriers to try to move forward in a positive direction. And I think to overcome these doubts, particularly these doubts, I had to find a deep sense of self-belief in me, that whilst I was autistic and different, that I could still achieve success, not only in music, but in life in general.
That's great. I'm glad you've been able to overcome that and achieve all the amazing things you have. Who is the most influential person in your life who helped you become who you are today?
This was to really pin it down to one individual was really tough. Um, I've had a lot of people who have had an influence on me throughout my life. And if you don't mind, I might actually name one or two.
Of course.
But I think I'll start off with my parents have had a big influence, undoubtedly. In particular, my dad, who has helped pass on to me that ability to work very hard, to be disciplined, to be principled, to be decent, to be tolerant, and to have high standards. So I've got a lot to thank my dad for, and he's just an overall, well, my parents, but in particular my dad, for being just a brilliant guy. And I take a great deal of influence from people from the musical world. There's a fiddle player from Cape Breton who sadly passed away in 2014, I think, but Buddy McMaster was an influence. And then there's a cello player who plays in the London Philharmonic Orchestra who is also autistic, Elizabeth Whitwandel, um, a big influence on making me realise that being autistic shouldn't hold me back from doing well in music. Um, and there's a various other people in the political, agricultural, and footballing worlds who have also had an influence on me and helped to keep me going. Particularly when I've been through some very challenging times. Yeah, without a doubt. I think
Mhm.
it's so important. It's so important to have people that you can, well, it's your parents like myself. It's so important to have people that you can look up to get inspiration from, and to keep you going.
That's lovely. Yeah. It's good to hear that your parents were such a nice influence on you and they were so supportive. I've performed a few times on stage, and it's not easy for me. I find it quite challenging. It's quite like I get quite anxious doing it. But obviously you're doing that quite a lot, and I was wondering if you feel nervous or overwhelmed before a concert, and if you have any techniques that you use to calm yourself down
Well,
before a performance.
yeah, well, I think, I mean, I've been performing, I've been on stage with the Scottish Fiddle Orchestra. I've done various gigs throughout my life. And yep, I have felt nervous before every single performance. And I think that's a good thing, in a way, to just to feel that slight nerves. Because I always think that there would be something wrong if you didn't feel nervous before
Mhm.
performing. Um, but to tackle my anxiety, I usually tend to want to have a few minutes to myself, so that I can focus my mind to focus on what I want to achieve, which is ultimately a good performance, and just to settle the nerves. So having that little space to myself, away from people, is one of the techniques that I use, and it usually works pretty well.
That's good. Yeah, I think that would be helpful, having a wee bit of time to myself to just relax before going on stage.
Yeah, and it's particularly very helpful if backstage is quite busy. So if you're
Mhm.
in a dressing room that's quite busy, and there's a lot going on, and that's happened to me quite a few occasions when the backstage can get very busy. It's just to take yourself away from it, and that just really helps to settle me down. So yeah, definitely, that's a technique that's helped me, and I think it will continue to help me, um, in the future.
What are your goals for the future? And this doesn't necessarily need to be music goals, it could be a mix of music goals, life goals, personal goals, just
Mm.
career goals, even just whatever you are aiming to do in the next few years to even just for the rest of your life.
I mean, this was a really good question, because this was a question that I had to spend quite a lot of time, thinking about.
Mhm.
But I think my goals for the future are certainly to do more with my music, certainly to do an EP, do an album, get out, do more gigs, to keep going to football matches, to support the team that I support, to help keep to keep helping out at the family smallholding, to keep my passion for agriculture and the countryside going, and to keep up campaigning for issues around autism. And I may also stand for Parliament one day. Who knows? That is our ambition of mine. But
Wow.
who knows what could happen in the future. Equally, I want to keep, progressing with my job at the National Autistic Society, to keep maintaining high standards, to hopefully get married, to have a family potentially, and actually just to keep life going in a positive direction. So there's a lot. There's a lot in
Mhm.
there that I want to do in the future. Some of them are quite simple. Some of them are quite ambitious. But that's actually okay.
Yeah, it's good to have a lot of goals, and I hope you manage to achieve everything you're looking to do.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and I think it's just going to be. I think to achieve a lot of them, it's just going to just need to take just a bit of, self belief, confidence,
yeah.
and just being true to myself. And if I can be
Mhm.
like that, then I'm quite sure that probably I'll be able to achieve quite a few of what I want to achieve quite a few of the goals that I want to achieve in life.
You mentioned within your goals about your passion for the countryside and your family smallholding. Nature can be a big thing for me as well. Like, I love spending time in nature. It really helps, again, just like music, calming me down, and it's somewhere I really enjoy spending time. Would you like to talk a wee bit about your passion for the countryside?
Well, I've been very lucky in my life. I was brought up in a small holding, and it just gives me the greatest joy to be able to go down there to help my dad do tractor work and do various stuff. It helps me to get away from the world. I can be,
Mhm.
I can be, I can be in my own little bubble doing stuff, and that has been a huge, huge help. Just being away from everything, being out in the country, out in the countryside. It's been a huge help to me, and it's a small holding as well. Helping my dad. It's also helped me to learn how to communicate, to work in a team, which is vital. And so it's been a big help to me developing as an individual as
Mhm.
well. And I doubt if I did not have the small holding in my life, I do think I would be the same individual that I am now. So I owe a huge amount to the small holding. And I think one of the things that I'm most passionate about now in terms of the countryside is to ensure that people in the agricultural industry, people who live in the countryside, um, are autism aware. So one of the
Mm.
tasks that I'm focusing on at the minute for my autism campaign work is to raise more autism awareness in Scotland's agricultural world and in the wider countryside, because I recognise that a lot of autism awareness happens in the towns and cities, and I feel
Mhm.
passionately that the countryside should be left behind. So certainly, that from what I've learned in the countryside, how it's helped me, I want to ensure that you know autism, the countryside can be as autism accepting as possible. So that's something I'm really passionate about and what I'm focusing on at this minute.
Yeah, that's a great goal. I didn't really think about the difference between autism awareness in the countryside versus in the cities, but that makes a lot of sense. It's good that we've got you working on that.
Well, I think it's so important. I think speaking to various people, it came to my mind that the countryside can sometimes be forgotten about,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to autism awareness. And that's why I'm on this mission at the minute to try and get autism out there, to get people talking about it in the countryside. Because there's families who have got children who are autistic, but they might not know about it or they might not know
Yeah.
where to go for support. So this is why I'm so passionate to ensure that the countryside is not forgotten about, and for those who live in the countryside, that they get the support that they need.
Mhm. That's great. So, what's something that people would be surprised to know about you?
Oh, that was that really was a good question. And I've got I had to have a laugh to myself when I was looking at this question, and tried to think about how I could answer this. I think I think one of the things that would surprise a lot of people is that I do like to have a bit of fun
Mhm.
and like to socialise. Um, because particularly when I was younger, and I still can be like this now, but I was a very shy, very reserved guy. Um, however, when I'm in the company of good people, good friends, and whatnot, I can they can see a different, more fun side to me, and I think that can surprise a lot of people, but surprise in a good way. That I've actually got a side to me that allows me to have fun, to have a laugh, and I'm not this serious guy all of the time.
Yeah.
There's an example, for example, when I was in Sofia in Bulgaria in June, and we went to this club on the final night where everybody who was at the conference. And I'm not known to be very good on the dance floor, but I ended up on the dance floor dancing away with the with the Nilla delegates and people who were. And I think that was a surprise for a lot of people. It was a surprise to me, but it was just great to let that side of me out and to let people see that I can get up and do a bit of dancing and have a
Mhm.
good time. So I think that's probably one of the things that probably has surprised some people.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I'll, usually opt to just stay at home in my comfort zone, but then when I do go out, it tends to be the happiest times, and it's the things I remember the most, and it's when I'm, at my best and most joyful.
Well,
But
I
then it's
mean,
like having recovery time afterwards and making sure you're not pushing yourself too hard, but it's just finding that balance between staying at home in your comfort zone and actually going out and spending time with friends and having a really joyful, time.
oh yeah, absolutely, and I totally agree with you.
Mhm,
I'm somebody who very much likes his own company, and sometimes likes to just have quiet weekends and do things by myself. Um, you know, but also like you, I have found that when I'm out in the company of good friends, having a few drinks or having a night out, that's can be that's that's when it can, you can encounter some of the best times of your life.
yeah,
But I think it's about, as you were saying, it's about finding a balance because if you overdo it on the socialising side, you can tend to get burnt out
mhm,
or exhausted. And I think people don't realise that for people who are autistic, if you're burnt out or exhausted, it can take quite a few days
yeah,
to actually recover from that. So I think, yeah, it's just about getting that balance right between having time to yourself, having a quiet time, and also spending time with friends and family and having a good time.
mhm. I think also, it's about who you're spending time with. If you're going out and you're spending time with people who don't really who you feel you have to mask around, that's gonna drain you much more than going out with people who you feel you can be yourself with and who you're really comfortable with.
Yeah, and going back to that time, and I'll go back to this again.
Mhm,
But for example, that club I was in Sofia in Bulgaria, um, it was one of these moments in life where the mask came off.
mhm,
When I was up on the dance floor, I could just be me. I could just be myself, no mask on, and that felt completely. It just felt like just freedom.
mhm,
I didn't need to mask with anybody, which was really um, such a fantastic feeling. But equally, there's been times when I've been out socialising where the mask has had to come on, where you've had to
mhm.
kind of smile when you've not wanted to smile, when you've wanted to talk, when you've not wanted to talk.
Yeah.
And it's these events that sometimes when you get home from, that you can be emotionally and mentally drained.
It's a lovely story with you unmasking though, that sounds like a really nice time you had.
And it's well, and when I'm feeling down, it's memories like that you can look back on. And what I would hope is that I can have many more experiences like that in Scotland
Mm,
as we go forward. That there's more times when I go out that I don't need to mask, that I can just be myself. And so um, that's ultimately the aim, to just kind of keep hold of that, the memory and the spirit that I find in Bulgaria, and to keep that going in Scotland, particularly when I'm out socialised.
mhm. Absolutely. You do a lot of campaigning work, and you were involved in our response to the Learning Disability, Autism and Neurodivergence Bill consultation.
Mhm.
In your opinion, what needs to change in Scotland to make things better for autistic people?
I mean, this is one of these questions. It's where to begin.
I know. You
You
can just
know,
pick one or two of the most, important
yeah.
things to you.
I mean, you could basically go on and on.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's so important that we see Scotland where there's no-go areas
Mhm,
for autistic people. That means all areas of society, from agriculture through to education, through to employment, through to the creative industries, through to public transport, need to be as autism aware and autism accepting as possible. And that may sound ambitious, but that's what I want to see Scotland become. A country which is autism accepting and where every single autistic individual is given the support to lead happy and successful lives. Um, on specifics, and that was a general point, but on
Mhm.
specifics, there's a few points that I want to highlight. I think there's much work to be done in schools and education. My biggest concern there is around the building of these so-called super campuses.
Yeah.
Um, it really does annoy me that how the heck are young autistic people supposed to be happy in places which accommodate up to 2,000 people? I mean, some of
Mhm.
these new schools can accommodate
Yes.
that amount of people, and it's a complete nonsense to
Mhm.
expect people who are autistic or neurodivergent to cope in these environments. So that needs to be, I think the Scottish Government really needs to look into that. Um, and I think we also need to see more funding to make sure that all teachers are given autism awareness and that pupils in all schools are also made aware of autism and neurodiversity too, because I think that would help to tackle bullying
Yeah.
and it would make pupils aware that being different is actually not a bad thing. So I think when it comes to education, I think that's some of the things that I would like to see. Um, we also need to keep working at getting more autistic people into employment. It's a tragedy that so many autistic people are not in any form of employment. I think there's so much talent going to waste.
Yeah.
So we need to keep working hard to ensure businesses, both in the private and public sector, can become as autism aware as possible and be places where autistic people can thrive and
Mhm.
feel welcomed and where they can feel that they can succeed. On a last point, we also need to end the scandal, and I think it's appropriate for me to call this a scandal, of autistic people being detained in institutions, often miles away from their families, um, friends, and communities. Again, this is a tragedy and should have no place in a modern day Scotland. You know, instead of being detained in institutions miles away from their homes, they should be with their families, getting the support they need in their local communities.
Yeah.
So I think much more work needs to be done by the Scottish Government to end this sooner rather than later. So I think that was some of the key points that I was wanting to make. There's probably a lot more that I could go on and talk about. Um, Probably also equally, I think just when I was reflecting on the question as well, that we are, the National Autistic Society has been working on a campaign for, the learning disability, autism, and neurodivergence bill.
Mhm.
And hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully we are successful and that gets put into the programme for government next week. But
Yep.
that bill gives us a real opportunity to create positive change for people who are autistic or who have got learning disabilities or who are neurodivergent in Scotland. And I think if the bill was successful and got through the Parliament and there was a creation of a commissioner would help bring about more accountability
Mhm.
and would also act as a champion for people who are autistic and neurodiverse or who have got learning disabilities. So with the bill, and hopefully if it's put into a programme for government, I think that's a real opportunity to really push for real meaningful change as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There was some great points there, David. Certainly things that I agree with, and certainly things that NAS are campaigning for as well.
Yep.
Um, so it's good to hear all of those things. I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot from that. Um,
Mhm.
so next question is, what is your favorite thing about yourself?
Well, this was a big question. This was,
Yes.
again, it took me a long time to really to think about this.
Yeah,
Hmm, there's actually, and if you don't mind, I think there was more than one thing
that's
that
okay.
I put down
Mhm.
here. So for me, my favourite thing stems from me as something, I'm quite ambitious, quite driven, I'm
Yeah.
disciplined. I want to be the best that I can be. I've got a passion for tradition, and I'm also very keen to maintain high standards and to keep moving in a positive direction. So I think these are all things that you know, that I'm positive about myself, and I think they also reflect my true self as well. So yes, I think that answers the question about that.
What does being autistic mean to you? And this is the final question for today.
What does autistic mean to me? I mean, that's again a question that I had to spend a lot of time reflecting upon, because it would be one of these questions where you could quite easily go and be quite negative
Yeah.
about. And and there's quite on days when I'm feeling quite bad or quite depressed, I would answer this question probably quite negatively.
Hmm.
And if I'm having good days, it would be quite quite positive. So I think for me, being autistic means being different and being an outsider,
Hmm.
but it also means being able to focus on what brings me the most joy in life. And I think these are the two things that being autistic, that's what, quite simple really, but that's two things that help make, that's what autistic means to me. These are the two things that I hold close to, that the sense of being different, being an outsider, but having that focus to enjoy our music, countryside, politics.
Hmm.
That's all. That's what autistic means to me. It's like a shadow of a doubt.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming, David. It's been great to talk to you.
That's a pleasure.